Hello viewer, welcome to Women's View. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please remember that you can be able to follow us on YouTube. Our channel is GBS TV Kenya. We're also live on Facebook, GBS Kenya. And in case you want to send us a message on SMS, the number to use is 21144. Thank you so much for joining us. Very interesting guest with us in studio. And I want her to introduce herself, and then I'll tell you what today's topic is. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Ms. Anne. My name is Janet Mwitiki. I am a senior ECD advisor. It's a pleasure talking to parents and our viewers today. My hope that you're going to enjoy the show. Thank you and most welcome.
Karibu sana. I'm so tempted to call him Mwalimu. Do people call him Mwalimu?
So many people call me Mwalimu.
So, viewer, today we have Janet in studio, and she's going to be talking to us about integrating child protection into ECD. That is ensuring that our children who are in early childhood education, early childhood development, that is basically age 0 to 5, are protected when they're in schools. So enjoy the show. Karibu sana once again. So I can call him Mwalimu.
You can call me Mwalimu. Please feel free to call me Mwalimu.
But you see, your title actually is very interesting. It's not a teacher. It's senior advisor.
Senior ECD advisor.
Senior ECD advisor.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your title and what it entails.
Basically, I think my title has come up from being that Mwalimu from the classroom,
Yes.
teacher for young children, and growing up professionally through more studies, engaging myself in more learning,
Yes.
and also through hands-on experiences working with both children, parents, and also the teachers who are teaching the children in the childcare centers.
Exactly. So initially you started as a teacher?
Yes, I
And
started
then
as a teacher.
you had your diploma or what?
No, the time I started, I just had a certificate. And then one of my teachers who taught me my certificate in ECD came to me and said, why are you wasting your time just being in the class the whole time? Kenyatta University has introduced a bachelor's in ECD, and it would be a great opportunity for you to go and continue with your education.
Okay.
So I applied, and the time I applied, I really wanted to do my degree because it was time for me to build
Your career.
my grade.
Okay.
So when I applied, I also had challenges. It's a long story. I applied and I wanted to resign. My first teaching job was in different areas, but at this particular time, I was in Moi base,
Okay.
the kindergarten as the administrator.
Okay.
So when I applied, I got the letter. But during that time, we were being interviewed. It was not just a matter of being called. So I went through
to get a degree.
to get a degree,
You're
to be
being
admitted to
interviewed.
that class of the ECD practitioners.
Wow, it was a big deal.
It was a very big deal. I didn't know whether you're going to qualify or what it takes because we had never heard about ECD, bachelor's in education in ECD.
Okay.
Exactly.
So when you were there, you finished your bachelor's in ECD,
Yes.
and then at what else did you do in order to become an advisor? Or what are the challenges you saw that you wanted to address?
I think basically once I finished my bachelor's, I felt like I needed to be an advocate for young children.
Yes.
Because the challenges that I found is in our society, African society, ECD teachers are perceived as people who never did well in school.
Exactly.
And therefore, I promised myself, if I find myself in a place where I can be able to have the voices of teachers,
Yes.
I would be able to speak on their behalf.
Okay.
And that's why I feel like I need to be in a platform where I can be able to talk about the importance of an ECD teacher and not just the ABCD,
Exactly.
but someone who can be able to understand the needs of the child even before conception, at birth, and as the child grows.
That's correct.
And also specifically on the importance of brain development, because this is what exactly I had gotten from my lecturers from KU.
Yes.
So once I left KU, I got into the non-governmental organizations where I started working with different NGOs, but also working with the less privileged children.
Okay. Okay.
And at that particular time, I became a trainer of the teachers. I could train the caregivers. Specifically, my aim was to build their self-esteem.
Yes.
Because
Because they're looked down upon a lot.
at any time they want also to introduce themselves because they know the perception. They don't say they are ECD teachers. They never want to say, mimi ni mwalimu.
So they don't want to be specific.
No, they don't feel specific like I'm an
nursery
ECD
school
teacher, I'm a nursery
teacher.
school teacher, because they know the society is going to perceive them differently. So mine was to help them bring up their self-esteem and see how they can introduce themselves for them to be able to own what they are doing and to love what they are doing.
Exactly.
So I had an opportunity to start training them encouraging them to introduce themselves as preschool teachers and ECD teachers, and how important they are and how much they do. Then I also started also going to workshops, forums, policy, development of policies and materials for ECD. And as I kept on moving, I remembered my promise in my heart was anywhere I go, I get an opportunity to speak on behalf of these teachers. I must speak on behalf of them.
Exactly.
I remember even most of the times people could ask me, hey, what is this ECD you are talking about? ABCD? I said, no, it's not about ABCD. I can define you from your top, from the head to down, and tell you what makes you be what you are today.
Exactly. And people, I think we also need to realize that that age of 0 to 5, it's so critical in the formation of a child in terms of the kind of person they're going to be early. And it's such a small window.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's so important and critical, and that's why I feel like what you're doing is a great service, because preschool teachers are so important.
They are.
Preschool, there's preschool teachers, there's also caregivers, because
Caregivers.
immediately the child is at 0, you can't even take them to preschool yet. There's that time when they're just at home.
Exactly.
And even the person we leave them at home with, are they taking good care of them? And that's why I'm so happy, because you're here to talk about it.
Yes.
And now I can see that you're actually narrowing it down even further into child protection.
Definitely.
Tell us a little bit about some of the cases you've seen that are abusive and how they impact children at that age.
I think I want to get back to the time I started working in the NGO world.
Yes.
I used to work in a very good school at Moya Base.
Yes.
So theoretically, I could hear people talk about a child has been defiled by the dad, a child is being abused, but it was like, no, it can't work. It can't be like that.
Yes.
But in 2007, after I had my own personal issue, I lost my second born during an accident.
Yes.
Then it happened that I started working in the Kiambio slums, in between Moyabes and Buruburu.
Yes.
So it was so funny for me, because the first time we started working in Buruburu, it was in Kiambio slums. It was during the post-election violence.
Yes, that was
in 2008. And surprisingly, I could find children who are as old as 5 years, some of them even taking care of their bedridden mothers in the beds.
Yes.
But the most touching incident is when I went into my first child care center in the ECD, in the slums, in the Kiambio slums. And I find the children in there during their outdoor play, and the teachers are out there watching the children as they are playing.
Yes.
And here is Brian, who is like 4-year-old.
Yes.
And Brian comes in saying, "Kata shingo songa mbele." I'm like, chop the neck, move forward.
What?
I'm like, I was so shocked, and I looked shocked, and people are looking at me like, Janet, what is surprising you? Then I said, you can hear this boy, what he's saying. Then they tell me, sisi tumezoea.
What? Oh my! They were not even alarmed. He is a child talking about chopping off people's necks as they are running.
And he's playing with the other kids as they are running after each other. And none of the caregivers or the teachers is able to stop him, Brian, or stop him from saying that.
Yes.
So when I'm getting shocked and wanting to know more, they tell me, Janet,
why are you
unashangaa?
overreacting? Come on,
Ni
relax.
kawaida, isi tumezoea.
Tumemzoea na kwanga hivyo.
Like, no. So it took me time, I followed up Brian a bit, but the time I was following him, the screams went higher than what I was expecting to hear from him.
Okay.
So I let him continue playing with the kids, but I had to inquire from the teachers why they were not taking precautions and why they were not talking to Brian to stop talking like so.
Yes.
But what came from the teachers is they told me these are the words Brian heard from the people who murdered the dad during the post-election violence.
And that means that was a traumatic event for the child, and those words stuck.
It was very traumatic, because I couldn't imagine, when he comes in the morning, he's running after his colleagues as they're playing. The teachers are comfortably seated. They say they didn't have anything to tell him. They didn't know what to tell him. Yeah. So I looked at it and said, okay, I've been in the ECD world for the last 15 years, but now this is a unique and very critical and special case for us to look at it.
Yeah.
Because my first question was, our ECD is looking forward to preparing our children for the future. But such a case like Brian is not interested in education.
Oh, that's another thing I wanted to ask you. Other than shouting like that during playtime, was he being able to learn?
No, for me, I found him during the outdoor play, and I think
Yes.
that was the best opportunity because unconsciously the child is able to articulate what he has in the mind.
They act it out,
They
actually.
act it out.
Yes.
And to me, it was like, when I looked back, it was like, Brian doesn't need the learning in the classroom at this particular time because he's already traumatized in one way or
He
another.
needs healing, emotional healing. Yeah.
But the teachers were totally not aware. They were not
Oblivious.
like, what's happening? So I thought, like, if we have the teacher who has been brought a child like Brian in this childcare center,
Yes.
and Brian spends the whole day playing and talking about this, and the teacher has nothing to tell him.
Yes.
And then also Brian was also running after the other children. What will be the impact, the future impact of Brian and the other Brians who might also be there?
Yes.
So I felt like, oh, the teachers also need some knowledge. They need this basic knowledge to understand, like, when a child is speaking like this, where is information coming from and what is it trying to pass out?
Those are actually red flags.
Red flags.
You
to
as a
look at,
teacher need to
exactly.
pick them and know that something is, there are underlying issues.
Definitely. But the teachers totally had no idea. Like, ni kawaida. It's very normal for us to
Normal.
hear
It's actually
that.
normalized. Yeah.
Exactly.
Tell us something else about the other cases, because I want people to understand that this is very important and it is very common. What are the types of abuse that happen to children in age 0 to 5?
In fact, most of the cases is we talk about neglect.
Neglect.
And when you talk about neglect, it's when the child is not able to be provided with the basic needs.
The basic needs.
Yes.
Okay. That's how you're able to define
To
neglect.
define it, like the way the child is not able, you are not being denial, or because of reasons, we don't take it because there are some reasons that can make, but denial, not being given the basic needs, provision of the basic.
That is basically
basic
food,
needs.
food, clothing,
medication,
shelter.
even love, of all the
even
things,
love.
even love. And especially someone like me who has been working in the informal settlements,
Yes.
to them love, they don't look at it like it's very key to our children.
I know.
Because
They-
like social, emotional aspect of the child is very key.
Yes.
So we need to kind of understand that it is the right of the child to get this love from the parents.
Yes.
It is your role as a parent to provide the food, irrespective of whether you have a job or you don't have a job. There is
That
no
is-
excuse for
that
that.
is-
And the child doesn't know it.
You didn't come
Not
up with the
about
reason and say that I
job.
don't have a job, therefore my child cannot eat. No.
No. You have
They
to
must.
have whichever way is provision of food. And also the other biggest challenge we have with this with neglect is medical attention. And
Yes, that's another thing.
yes, majority of the children, like in the informal settlements, you find that a child is sick and the parent just go over the counter and is able to get some medication, and there is no diagnosis. The child has not been diagnosed, like what is the
What is
problem, what is
the
ailment.
disease? Yes.
Exactly. So even some of them are brought to taken to the child care centers where they're still sick, no medication, and the parent just switches off his phone or her phone because they're casual laborers. If they don't go for work, it means that there is no food for that day.
Exactly.
So what happens? They drop the child to the caregiver, who is the teacher in the ECD center.
These are basically the daycare centers.
The daycare center,
The nursery schools.
the nursery schools,
Kindergarten, and even some schools of
Exactly.
kindergarten and primary. So you just
Exactly.
drop your child in the morning, you know that they're not well, you switch off your phone because you don't want the teacher to call
to
you.
call you, because anytime you are called,
That is
remember
neglect.
that is neglect.
Yeah. I want my viewer to be very clear about what neglect is, because I've realized that people like to be in denial. You know, when a parent is doing that, they don't like it. They feel bad.
Yes.
But they tend to lie to themselves that this is okay. No. I want my viewer to understand that when a child is not provided with food, with clothing, with shelter, with medical attention, with love, that is neglect. You need to know that if you're not
neglect.
providing these things, what you're doing to your child is neglect, and neglect is a type of abuse.
It's a form of an abuse.
It's a form of an abuse.
It's a form of an abuse.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter whether the child is 0 to 5, because sometimes also I find that we tend to look at them as so little, as though they can't. I think we assume we hata sikia vibaya sana, ni mdogo hata they will not be hurt. They'll
I think the
understand.
biggest challenge that we have as parents,
Yes.
because even personally I'm a parent,
Yes.
is there is the perception of huyu ni mtoto mdogo, hataelewa. But
Hataelewa,
we are what we
exactly.
are today because of what we got in those first 5 years of life. Nowadays, we are talking about the first 1,000 days.
Yes.
A first 1,000 days, that's the 16th day after conception. Once a mom has conceived, you start thinking about the life of that individual child at that particular time.
When they're in your womb.
In the womb.
Not even 0 to 5,
No.
before.
After conception, the 16th day, you start thinking about what are the basic needs I need to provide to the baby at this particular time. Because the mother needs to be psychologically settled, the dad to be also be psychologically happy, emotional support, health care, attending to the health antenatal clinic, getting what is the best nutrition status. That's very important
Eating
for
well,
the mother.
avoiding alcohol and
avoiding
drugs,
alcohol,
all those things.
because at that particular time now the baby is growing in the womb. So even neglect may start as early as even when the baby is in the womb.
Exactly.
There are some parents who get
Rejecting.
pregnant. Exactly. They get pregnant when like I was not prepared to be pregnant. Then you start regretting. When you suffer that stress, it directly goes back to the baby in the womb. And then you avoid taking like issues to do with the medication. Antenatal clinic will say, oh, I don't want the baby. You're skipping because you don't need the baby. And you know it's not his fault or our fault to come at that particular time.
Poor child. They're just on the receiving end and they're wondering, why is it that I'm feeling all these negative vibes?
Exactly. The negativity just goes direct. And that's where you find like that is the critical time where there is the issue of brain development. The neurons, which are the wires in the brains, are being connected. And that's the time also when the child is born, you feel like he was already neglected, and the neglect is like a cycle. It still goes on because he came into this world, no going again for the post-antenatal clinics, no doing anything. So it becomes a very big challenge to parents.
But another thing, though, I need to also make clear, sometimes as a parent, and I'm a parent as well, and I know that it is important for us to provide to our children. And so what we tend to do is we tend to outsource a part of our parenting to a nanny, or a house help, or even a family member who maybe is staying with us and not working. Can a child be abused in that setup as well? What is based on your experience?
Yes, I must say yes. Before I explain my experience, most of the times parents don't have time to be with their children. We are very busy looking for money that we are bringing back to a child who is already kind of been neglected or has been abused. So when you take your responsibility to the nanny or an extended family member, it's very important for you to know. It might not be very easy for you to know whether your child is being abused. Because remember, they bond become
with
good
this
friends.
person.
And the child may not be able to share to you what he or she is going through because she doesn't want a relationship or his relationship with the nanny to be broken, to be interfered with.
In a way, they protect them.
They protect them so much, and in some case scenarios, you'll find that it's your baby, and maybe like baby, the girl, it's your baby, you are calling your baby like Abigail, then you may start asking her like, how was your day? Did you eat today? So the nanny stands first and says, oh, she ate, alikula.
Interrupting quickly before the child even can answer.
So that's a red flag, like for parents. When you ask your child something, it is important for your child to respond by himself, to you, herself, or himself. There are some other cases like when your child is responding to you, you have come in the evening and is responding to you, and you may ask, oh, Anne, how was your day? What happened? And she looks at the nanny and responds to you. That's another red flag. Because
looking for, like, trying to seek approval, because probably this person who is abusing them has told them, usiambie mom, usiambie dad. So they hesitate to give you feedback.
They may not give you the feedback because remember, tomorrow in the morning you are out of that house. You're going to spend lesser hours with this child, and the child is going to spend more hours with the nanny. And sometimes these also nannies are like, if you speak it out, tomorrow you'll get utaona. So that aspect, that's a red flag. It's a red flag. And parents like, it's very normal you talk and you feel like your child doesn't want to talk to you. That's also another thing you should be able to ask yourself. Why is she free or even free to talk to the nanny and not to respond to you as a parent? Remember, your bond with your child is higher than a nanny who has just come in to interact with your child, because we talk about the nature and nurture, experiences and genetics. You are more related to your child because of the genetics that he or she inherited from you. But the nanny here is because of the the environmental experiences that they came to meet when the child was like so. So it's a red flag. Like, parents need to be very sensitive on how the responses and how their children react when the nanny is there and the nanny is not in the house. Because sometimes you'll find that when the nanny is there, the child wants just to keep sitting in a place somewhere alone on a chair and doesn't want to talk to you as mommy because
they're so behaved.
and they're exactly, and it's avoiding in a way that she'll tell you what happened and the nanny will be on her neck. So the best thing
they're
is
trying to control themselves by being quiet, because once they start talking to you, they might by mistake say,
talk about what happened.
I'm so amazed that their brains are so developed in terms of protecting the nanny, protecting themselves.
And remember, when we talk about issues to do with abuse, in most cases, that person is never a new person. It's somebody who is not a stranger within that environment.
Yeah. You know what? Let me interrupt you a little. We as parents, we tend to really protect our children against strangers.
Yes.
Say, don't talk to strangers. If a stranger calls your name, this is my number.
Yes.
But we never really go the second step, because you've said that a lot of times the abuse is from somebody who is within.
Very well known to the family.
So they're not a stranger, basically.
Very well known. 10% may be from a stranger, but the other big percentage is always from someone very well known in that family, someone who knows the child very well, starting from family members, extended family members, and the nannies we are talking about, but not someone like who is coming from a far end to come and look after your boys.
Gardeners, all those people.
Exactly. Those ones come later, but the highest percentage of abuse comes from well-known family members.
Wow.
Exactly. Starting from the parents themselves.
Even the parents, exactly.
Yes, starting from the parents.
So how, okay, you've told us about the warning signs, like when it's a nanny. How would you be able to catch the warning signs when it's somebody who is so close?
As in
What
like
are the signs? What are the signs will a neglected child like exhibit, which you as the parent who is not abusing can pick? Or the teacher, because you see, we're also talking about, really, now we've sort of moved away from the school.
It's because child protection is a very wide.
Child protection is very wide.
Exactly.
But we're talking about in the school.
Yes.
Here you are, you're a preschool teacher, you're proud, you're well trained, you're happy, you love kids, and then you're seeing children coming. What are the signs in school that the child, of course, if a child is hungry, they're going to, the children don't have shame. I want to hire. They're going to actually ask for food. If they see their friend eating food, they're going to ask for it. Those are signs.
And they don't give, they'll grab the food from the hands of the friend.
Oh, really?
Exactly.
They'll take that
bullying. The aspect of bullying.
They'll take it by force.
Exactly, because I remember, I want to speak about something like very important to us to know is that there was a study that was carried out in 2006, a report study for child abuse in Kenya in 2006 to 2016, and we still have a new...
10 years, huh?
At 10 years
A 10-year gap, period,
yes.
Okay.
And we still have a very most current one also from Childline Kenya for 2017.
Okay.
One of the similarities is that they found that neglect is always like the highest form of abuse. And any time neglect goes high, all the other forms of abuse also go up.
Increase.
Exactly. Because you see, if the child is hungry, if the child is neglected, it's very easy for this child to be lured into defilement by someone because he or she is looking for food.
Already they are predisposed, they are vulnerable.
Exactly.
Okay.
So anytime the neglect is always like the highest, and anytime it shoots up, the other forms of abuse definitely shoots up because they are more interlinked or interrelated.
So this thing we're calling neglect is critical.
Critical and crucial, that people have to think about what can we do.
Yeah.
So you were asking about the signs of that our children may exhibit in the child care centers when they come. Sometimes you find like a child is being brought up to the child care center by a parent, but the child is so dull. It's just so down. Like when you're talking to the parent, how did the aunt sleep? How is she? Like, go, enda uingia ndani, mwalimu ndio ingia ndani. It's like just pushing
the child away.
And at this time you find like the child is so dull, he's not happy. It's like it's missing something. So when you look even at the facial expression of the child, they look sad. Even that excitement of coming to school, they may not have it. But funny enough, once they get to the child care center, their moods may change. Because we also have the provision of feeding program. The teachers now may have an understanding of this child may be going through this and that from the family. So that is the time like they start kind of getting some happiness. And remember, even as they interact with the other peers in the classroom, there is some better interaction where people are understanding, she is being listened to, is also being given an opportunity to speak out.
Okay.
The other sign that the child may be able to exhibit, when they come to school, they may just decide to sleep one up on the table. As early as in the morning. Imagine the child has just woken, but is not active.
Yes, and he wants to sleep, and he's
He
not
just wants
sick.
to sleep. And he's not sleep, he's just kind of laying his head on the table because nothing is good for him. You know, an empty tummy, you cannot do anything.
You can't, yeah.
So
You cannot
exactly,
learn.
you
can't
cannot
think about
learn.
learning.
Learning is not a priority at this particular time. It's the
Yes.
basic need of the tummy, having something to make
Exactly.
him or her active. So there is also the other aspect of any time the child may be crying unnecessarily. You see, like just crying. Anything minor, small, they are just crying. His life to him is tough.
Yes.
There is also the other aspect when children like go to the washroom, so to the toilet, they start looking around to see what bag has what. They'll be like getting food stuff from the other children's bags.
Because now they're almost stealing.
They're
Actually,
almost
they're stealing.
exactly. They've been
Because now
pushed to
things are
steal.
they've been pushed to that level.
Exactly.
Grabbing, stealing.
Stealing. And sometimes they also become bullies because they are sad. They are kind of displacing their anchor to the wrong people because they can't beat the parent, they can't ask the parents, so what happens?
They beat their peers.
They beat their peers. And,
And you know what? Bullying is tending to increase, huh? And that's a very good angle that you've brought in, that probably when you see that happening, it is because that child is troubled.
It's trouble.
Yeah, and we've been seeing a lot of on social media of such cases.
And we normally tell teachers, don't look at this may not be the root cause of what is happening with this child. There might be a bigger issue that is happening at the family level.
Yeah, this is just how they are. This is just how it's exhibited.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay,
So there is also the other aspect. You see, sometimes the teachers may be taking tea or porridge or something. So when the child gets an opportunity to grab that plate, that's an empty plate the teacher has finished, there is that behavior of putting their tongues to finish up the leftovers, licking the leftovers food. Be it is tea, be it is food. That is the
they're
kind
actually,
of behavior.
oh my, wow, that is so sad. Because they're like, man, I've seen this. I don't know where my next meal is coming from. I better take it all. I mean,
Exactly.
can imagine licking tea. Oh
And
my
that's an
God,
opportunity.
that is
For
so
them,
sad.
they look at it like an opportunity. So that's also a very big other sign of neglect. And specifically like neglect on issues to do with food provision. Yes.
Wow.
And also issues of like clothing. You find children just come to school with tattered clothes. Some of the clothes are torn, and parents don't even have time. Dirty, they're not washed. The way they have been dressed is just the way they've woken up from the bed. The child was just carried and brought to the caregiver.
Yeah, and you know, 0 to 5.
Yes.
You mean some of the children in that age group are not potty trained. So of course, if you're neglecting the child in terms of just clothing, it means that in the morning nobody even help them clean up well. They are smelling, you know.
Not even cleaning up well, and some of them wake up their babies like in the daycare centers, and the diaper that the baby slept with yesterday night will be brought to the child care center where the teacher should have an opportunity to change such a diaper.
No, surely.
Imagine, and that is the
extreme.
life of the teacher. It's extreme, and that's real life experience of what is happening.
Yeah, so those are the things that
Exactly.
you're seeing.
Those
and
are the
being able
things I'm
to-
seeing in the ground. You feel like a child has been woken up. Some of the children are brought up even when they're still napping, they're still asleep because parents want to go to work early.
That's another thing that, by the way, the CS in education has really been insisting that there's a time when schools open.
Yes.
Because a lot of parents, or a lot of situations we're coming across where children are waiting for school buses, it's still dark.
Exactly.
That child already, sleep, I think, should be included in one of the basic needs for children, because allowing your child to sleep so late and then waking them up so early, and for them sleep is critical.
It is.
That should be. I mean, it is a type of abuse. It is a type of neglect.
It's a form of abuse, and that's why when we are talking about child abuse, we don't ever say, oh, the mother can't abuse, or the dad can't. There is no one whom we can ever say, like, this one can't abuse.
And you see, I'm feeling uncomfortable because I'm like, those are things that happen so much. And I don't want to label them as abuse because I'm like, it's like I'm really becoming unfair to the parent, but it is.
There is
and
no flexibility. There is no any other form of call. The name is an abuse, irrespective of whichever form and whichever degree it takes place. I know that people are talking about the roles. When does it become an abuse apart from a role?
It's like you want to be allowed to do it like to 5%.
5%, like just caning. They talk about caning. When you don't want to feel the pain, should you go at what level? But pain is pain, irrespective of how small, how big it is. Abuse is an abuse.
And what we need to do is, instead of neglecting our children, we need to take care of them. We need to be concerned for them. So yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, you're talking about a child who is so sleepy.
And is brought up in your daycare. Like for us, we normally tell daycare caregivers or teachers, never ever pick someone's child coming to a daycare when the child is asleep. For health checkup, wake up the body and be sure that the child is there. And don't be
Even
exactly.
I mean, you know,
It's
you might take a
alive.
child.
You may take a child who other issues happen at night and somebody just throws the baby to you. So we always help caregivers, like never ever take a child who's asleep. It's good for you to wake up the
At
child.
least
confirm the child is still there, because some people will tell you, akiamka atanisumbua. Let the child wake up to know it's already during the morning. You see those rights of the child, like understanding it's already at the morning. You just want to leave the child sleeping like nothing is happening, but we need the child to be awake and know you've come to a new environment. We are away from home. You are back again to a new
daycare. Yes,
exactly. So I think that one is also very crucial, like for people. And parents should have time to be with their children. We all agree that we need money, but sometimes you look for that money the whole hours, the whole day, and then you find that your children have been suffering and they blame you to the whole of their life. And when they grow up, it will be so unfortunate for you and your children telling you, Mom, you know, if you could have had time for us, we could not be at this level. Exactly.
Wow. Guess what? We need to take a break, but thank you so much, because right now in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, there's so many things I need to make sure that are in order as a parent.
Definitely.
So viewer, keep it here. We'll be right back after the break. Thank you.
Healing, hope, restoration. Amazing stories of real people like you who have triumphed over tragedy. Watch Turning Point International and be inspired to reach your turning point.
It really ministers to the soul of man, and as a pastor, you benefit a lot because people learn and they learn how to cope with issues probably you don't even deal with in your sermons.
It's not reality TV, it's real life TV.
Kulipa is now easy with EasyPay. When you shop at your local supermarket, fuel your car, dine out, book a flight, make other payments or pay your bills, you want simplicity, security and convenience. It's accepted everywhere you see the EasyPay sign. And it works with other mobile networks too. What's more, you can withdraw your cash at the supermarket till where you see the cashback logo. Get your Equitel line or download the Easy Banking app today because Kulipa is now easy with EasyPay.
Hey,
Elijah.
I'm a young baller. Every
What's up, my people? This is Brand Senior, Mr. KCA, Mr. Glam International Kenya, People's Choice. And the message is, if you are out there and you have any talent, all art, if you have any artistic thing, this is the place to be. Wednesday and Thursday.
hey.
Ningekuwa dem ningeitwa Joy, fruit of the Holy Spirit. Lakini si ati mnikule kama nimeiva. Hii ni wine ya word. Unajua spirit zenu zimezoea 8 pm na masaa ya 2:2. So 7 pm ningependa mnitune in kama nipashe cause I'm your fellow citizen.
8:30 p.m. manze on your favorite channel. I'm talking about GBS TV.
Elijah.
I'm a young baller. Every
Hello viewer, welcome to
Chungu Jajami.
My name is Tigist Hailu.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ruben West.
I'm Dr. Charles Mukuka
from the United States of America.
I come from Ethiopia.
from Zambia.
I love Kenya very much.
I love the Kenyan people.
Love is not by confession. Love is by action.
Come on now.
When you are a husband, you are not a husband.
It's very important.
You can count the seeds in an apple, but you can never count the number of apples in a seed.
Her phone is her phone. My phone is my phone.
You only know what you know.
Who forced you?
The more you spend time together, the more stronger.
A woman is like a Bible.
Could tell me that they were born and it wasn't from a female, I'd like to know.
A woman, she's a good asset. And a woman, she's a very, very good investment.
When you're up, your family knows who you are. But when you're down, you'll figure out who your family is.
Thank you so much.
Mkurueni Wakulima Dairy brings you tasty, fresh and creamy Royal products. Get Royal yogurt in strawberry and vanilla flavors, Royal Lala, Royal Fresh Whole Milk and the Royal Long Life Milk at affordable prices. The Royal taste of freshness is all your family needs.
right. Ni nani? Ni nani? Carry on! Hola! Genius DJ, genius DJ, genius DJ, genius hype man. Wow! It's bigger, it's better, it's live. I'll be your host, Ipola the Experience.
Genius Republic DJ Karian.
Join us for Eko Mziki each and every Sunday from 8 a.m.
For the best in gospel music as we host your favorite gospel ministers.
Every Sunday, live on your favorite station, GBS TV. Boom, 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 boom. Carry on! Hey!
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back, viewer. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Today, we're talking about integrating child protection into ECD. We're basically saying that when children are from 0 to 5, they're exposed to a lot of abuse. And Janet is with us in studio. She is a senior ECD advisor, basically helping helping teachers to pick out the cases where children have been abused, and not just to pick out, but also know how to deal with a solution, how to deal with the issue so that the abuse is stopped. So before we stopped, we basically talked about how lack of provision of basic needs. When you don't provide love, you don't provide food, clothing, shelter, medical attention to your child, and love comes with time, as well. When you don't provide those things to your child, you are abusing them, you're neglecting them. And when neglect is there, all the other types of abuse tend to be easy to come in. So I wanted us to talk a little bit about other types of abuse, because we really want to break down the issue and let parents know that when you're doing this, it's an abuse. Let's talk about corporal punishment. A lot of times as a parent, you feel you need to discipline your child, and definitely you need to bring up a child who has got good character. But what is the right way to discipline that is not abusive?
Thanks, Anne. I must say, most of the times because of the society and our cultural practices where we've been brought up, we normally think that the best way to discipline our children is through caning or physical punishment. And I always tell people I talk this through my own experience. I have my own experience of my own 2 children. One of them is a teenager, the other one is 9 years. And I have the firstborn of my children, my son, I didn't know, I was a believer corporal punishment has to happen. You have to cane for the child to understand what you are saying or to discipline. And he suffered a lot from me. I really used that corporal punishment. However, in between their birth, I got to go for this child protection and advocacy for children. And when I got my daughter, it's the parenting was totally different. It's just coming up with a dialogue. We agree, this is the way forward. If it works, this is the rewarding, this is what we're going to agree. And I have seen a big difference. I would not mention all the differences that I have seen, but I am able to tell people, I would say, I am not an advocate for corporal punishment. I know many people say, spare the rod, spare the child. A rod is not specifically the physical cane that we use. A rod can be a dialogue that you agree with your children.
Or a consequence.
A consequence.
Yeah, based on the rules that you have come up with.
Exactly. So for me, I say we have translated the rod from the Bible to become like a physical cane that we are holding. So translation is also kiboko. So for me, I look at it like when you have a family and you want to discipline your children rather than using the kiboko, is there any way you can engage your children in drawing the rules of the family together? Don't say in this family, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. Can you ask your children to contribute towards what they love the family to look like and what they wouldn't want to see in the family? Remember, the family is not all about the parents. Without the children also, you would not be talking about a family.
They're also stakeholders.
They're stakeholders.
I like that. I like what you're saying, that when you're forming the rules, coming up with the rules, involve them.
Involve them and let them take the bigger percentage. You guide them. But let them take a bigger percentage, because these rules are mostly going to tie the family, and they're going to tie them. And because they want to respect the rules that they put down, they will make sure that they work towards retaining the rules and not breaking the rules themselves. There is ownership. So for physical punishment, remember, when you talk about abuse, is anything that causes pain. So if you are caning a child, that's a pain, and the pain may also bring about the social emotional aspect, which is also another form of abuse. When you cane somebody, when somebody bites you or kind of exactly any physical punishment, you are not happy. Your happiness, the pain makes you not to feel happy, and that lack of happiness also affects your social emotional thinking, the expression of your feelings and so forth. So we also have the other form of an abuse, like social emotional, where we talk about children they are withdrawn. Children do not want to play with their peers. They don't know how to interact with the adults, which is a very big challenge. And because of the form of abuse that they have been brought up in a family where they are taught, children don't talk in front of adults.
They're basically just
listeners, just listen. But remember, there are some case scenarios in the family which could be saved by a talk of a child when we are in between a conversation with a person. Maybe something is happening out there. So a child is being hurt. Water is boiling. Fire is coming. And then you say, keep quiet. Children will keep quiet until you finish. And by the time you are finishing,
it's a disaster.
It's a disaster. So we need to help our children to know when they want to talk to us, we are in a conversation, how can they excuse themselves?
They can say, excuse me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to interrupt. Or they can be a way of doing it.
Exactly.
Instead of completely
shutting them down like an asset. And also it's not because of the children where they come from. All children, irrespective of where they come from, they have the talents to be the best children we can ever have and to reach their full potential. Exactly. So there is also the other form of abuse where we talk about sexual abuse.
Yes, that's true.
Exactly. Majority of the people, just when we talk about sexual abuse, they think that sexual abuse is the insertion or is when a child has been defiled. But that's not true. There are several forms of sexual abuse where there is also the pornography part of it.
What they're watching.
That they're watching. They can either be watching at home. Sometimes we have these TVs. Children are so busy watching, but you don't know what they are watching. And when you come in the house, they just switch it off to another program because they're very wise. They know you wouldn't want them to watch that.
Yes.
So there is also the other aspect of touching, especially when you were asking me about parenting with the nannies and so forth. Some nannies do not have time to go and meet with their other opposite gender. So what happens? They satisfy their sexual urge through the use of touching your child's private part. Exactly. So how do parents know like such things are happening to their children? So there is also the other aspect of touching private parts for your children by their nannies and other people. There is also the other aspect of people touching private parts to satisfy their sexual urge from our children. So it is not necessarily that when the child has been, when you talk about
I get it.
Amelala naye ndi utasema has been sexually abused. There are several ways that the child can be sexually abused. And in young children, minors who are below 18 years, we don't talk about rape. We say they have been defiled. A minor is defiled.
So even when you're reporting the case, you need to use the correct terms.
You use the correct term. The child has been defiled.
Okay.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about that exposure, because sometimes it can actually be that maybe even when you're watching adult content, you're not telling them to leave. For example, you know, is that a type? Would that be considered abuse, or that is overexposure? Or
why are you watching it when they are there? Because you see, the children love doing what you tell them not to do.
I know.
Because they want to know what makes.
Do this, no. Don't do this. That's
exactly. What will happen if we do? So if you don't want them to watch, the young children learn through observation and imitation. So rather than you waiting for them to watch or to wait for you to go out, or you telling them to deny them from sitting with you there, spend as much time as you can have to talk to your children. When it comes time to watch such things, probably when the children have already gone to sleep. And avoid such programs, because you may leave the program also open and you come and find that they also switched it on. And that's what they nowadays.
You just pause and then they come and continue.
Exactly.
Because then to them, if you are watching it, it's okay, you know.
That's reality, because what makes you mom to watch when you are telling us to not to watch?
And that's another thing about rules. If you set a rule, it will apply to all of you.
All of you.
Not that you are exempted as a parent.
No. Remember, the rules are going to govern the family, and you're part of the
family.
Exactly.
So okay, that's very good. I think we've tackled a little bit on what types of abuse there are and how you can identify the abuse. What are the red flags to look out for? So what else? So now let's go back to the ECD center. When a preschool teacher comes across a child who's acting out, like that story you told us about Brian, about Katashingo, because that's what they saw their child, their parent, you know, suffering. What can they do? Because they can also be overwhelmed, you know? Do they know what channels to follow? What are the channels?
I think the biggest challenge that the teachers have, there was a time I used to go and train them on the ground, and they tell you, yes, Janet, I have seen this child has been abused, but I don't know how to tell and who to tell. Because for one, there is the aspect of threats. They're like, when I tell and the parent knows it's me who has told this story, what's going to happen to my life? And I remember majority of them are just coming from the kind of an environment.
So these people are their neighbors.
They are their neighbors. And you know that is like, we normally say a secret is only a secret when it is for only one person. So for us, we encourage the teachers, first of all, to understand how to identify.
Yes.
And once they identify, because we cannot prevent child abuse 100%, once they identify, what is the procedure? So the procedure that we are trying to give our teachers in the child care centers is they have to have one designated child protection coordinator in the child care center.
Okay.
So that this information, when the abuse has been identified,
Yes.
it is not going to spread all over the entire school.
Because now that also is
the
abusive
evidence,
to the child.
exactly. And even you will never have something like the evidence to say the secret of what happened. Because now everyone knows, and any one of the teachers can also be a colleague to the parents where they go early enough and say, I had it being spoken out.
Yes.
So because of
it's a confidential matter, basically.
very confidential.
And so the channels of communicating are also confidential.
They're very confidential, but we need the children also to know who to go to, someone whom they trust. Like if it's a child protection coordinator in the child care center, we have someone who is already trusted by the children, and the children can also be able to talk to that particular person, to reach that particular person.
Okay.
Apart from the teachers, we are bringing in the component of village, like we have community leaders around there who are also working on the issue of protecting children.
Yes.
Then we also have the CHVs, because we are working with the community health volunteers.
Community health volunteers. Okay.
Because when it comes to issues of referrals like defilement and so forth, the teacher may not be able to identify which is the best health facility that we need to take this child.
Yes, because I mean that is
it's tough.
It involves a medical center
attention,
coming in,
police abstract and so forth.
Exactly.
So we are really kind of trying to help them. First of all, the teacher to have the basic information to know what are the characteristics, what are some of the indicators that I will need to say Jen has this challenge.
Yes.
And we've given them like some cards, activity cards, where they can be able to monitor each child. If it's neglect, these are the characteristics, these are the indicators. If I see and with this one on Monday, 2 on Tuesday, Wednesday, this is a cause of a big alarm that we need to call someone.
Don't ignore.
Don't ignore.
Yes.
But if it happens once, maybe there is a time to wait and see how it is, but they need to wait and see what is the average of how it goes.
Okay.
So we also have formed, we call it a community of practice, groups which meet just for the leaders, who as maybe the head teacher, as the person who is in charge of the village around there or the community around there, and a particular CHV who is in charge of the other CHVs.
Okay.
Because once we bring the CHV, the government is also at that level of the CHV.
We've basically started, those are government channels.
Exactly. So once a teacher identifies an abuse has happened, we call it the whistleblowing process. They don't blow it all over. So she has to work out on her way to see who do I highlight this information to, which is my next step. And we've kind of given them a procedure on, I have identified an abuse. You don't need to call the parent immediately and ask, Jen, what happened to your child?
And that's another thing that is very interesting, because I'm not hearing you mentioning the parent.
Yes.
You mean you're actually sidestepping?
No, if the abuse is coming from home, if the child has come to the child care center, and probably the abuse happened at home, maybe yesterday when I left to Jen, you were okay, then the abuse might have happened at home. It would not be good for me to involve the parent immediately.
Because that might be where the source, you know?
And the defense will be there like, oh no, you know.
I know. Number one response of a parent is no, not my child.
Not me.
It cannot be.
Not
I mean,
me.
that's the way it is. You just have to, you're trying to protect either yourself or your child. So okay.
So even before we call in the parent, we also really would want to hear from the child, himself or herself.
Yes.
Remember, the rule is the best interest of the child and the right to participation. So we want to hear what the child says, because most of the times children don't lie, and especially if it's something that's affecting the child will tell you, when I went home yesterday, this is what happened, like that. And anytime the child is also talking to the teacher, we advise them to put in writing, because children may forget the information, or even the teacher may forget the information.
Yes.
We have an incident reporting form where the teacher is able to put down the time, the date, what happens, what actions did she take or did he take after that. Then you can be able to put the file in a folder. Then if there is a need for you to call the other people, maybe like the village elder, to ask the way forward, but there is already the designated child protection coordinator in the school, apart from the head teacher, because the head teacher may not deal with the abuse cases, also it's overwhelming. So we have that particular person.
Okay.
Yes.
And is this something that have you witnessed a case where it has maybe one case where this happened and the outcome was positive for the child? Or are we at the early stages so that we don't have any success stories so far?
We are really at the early stages, but one of the biggest challenges I have evidently seen the last few years I've worked with child protection is the abuser is most of the times, you don't find those abusers at the back at the behind doors. Anytime the abuser is taken behind doors or to the police cells or whatever case, you find that the abuser has just come back again home.
Oh, basically
So
they're able to get out.
to
They're
maneuver
able to
their
either bribe
ways
their
to
way
get-
out
exactly.
or collude to be able to get back out. So you mean like they're not able to pay or to
No,
go
not
through?
really. We are really, our systems, our child protection systems in Kenya, we are
They're
really
so
trying
weak.
to work hard to strengthen them. Because that's the biggest challenge is teachers find abuse on daily basis. But the biggest challenge is who do I tell and how do I tell? Because at the end of the day, you report someone and in the evening that somebody is back home. Now that person will be on your neck.
I
So
know.
what happens? The child continues suffering, the abuse still continues happening. So the biggest challenge for us here is to look at how can we strengthen the systems in a way that the person who is on the ground, the simplest person, the person who is in that really low level of understanding can be able to take care of this child, protect the child, and be able to save the child at the end of the day.
Yeah. And you know what? I like to sometimes, you know, as our culture is such that we tend to overlook these things. We tend to normalize them. You know, like in other countries, probably in the West, you find that children can even call.
Yes.
And a child officer can even come home, and the aim is to just get the child out of that environment.
Exactly.
I find that here our systems are they're weak, and a lot of it's like we really need to work so much to be able to protect our children.
In fact, for us, the idea of going to the ECD centers is because we have seen so many people work on issues to do with child protection in the education system. But now there is the primary level, there is the secondary, there is the issue of safe space and so
Yes.
forth. But now our ECD teachers who are already starting with children at a very early age,
Yes.
we also want, as we capacity build on them, to disseminate this information to our young children, because all the time the teacher will not be there.
Yeah.
But is there any way the teacher, through very simple songs as they learn in the child care center, be able to put some information where the child can be able to learn, like, if I am walking alone, it is not safe. It's not very safe. But I can identify a friend.
Security should start from you, even when you're a child.
Exactly.
So start learning that you shouldn't walk alone
You
at
should
night.
walk alone. What
At
are the
night.
benefits of working with somebody, and what are the disadvantages when I walk alone?
Yeah.
So if the teachers can be able to disseminate, give this information to our children as early as enough. Some of the children will ask them, why should I walk alone? What happens if I walk alone?
Yeah, because a lot of times you find that even parents, here you are, you went to work,
Yes.
you take your child to the daycare, you pick them up, you pick them late, you're at home, you need to buy some mboga.
Yes.
Who are you sending?
The child.
The child.
Exactly.
By themselves. So if the child is aware that it's not safe to go alone
And even at night.
then at least they can tell you, can I go with so-and-so? And you see, maybe that will prompt you. Because sometimes some of these things happen, not intentionally. That might prompt you as a parent to say, oh, go with your sister. Go with your
Exactly.
brother.
Accompany
Because that
somebody.
accompanies the child, you know. Yeah, okay.
Yes, I think for us, we looked at it and said, yes, we'll teach the teachers
Okay.
on how to do this.
Yes.
But is there any way we can go down the teachers to talk to the parents, talk to the children, and let them understand, like, if an abuse happens to me, if I'm left in the house with the nanny, and this
Yes.
happens to me, these are the precautions that I'm supposed to take. I was surprised one day I visited a center in Kibera, and it had like children of 9 years, 10, 11. And I was asking them, they were doing some dancing clubs, and then I was asking them, if anything happens to you, if your teacher touches your private part, what can you do? And they were so shy to say, me, I don't know about that one. I'm like, this is...
That's how we are
this,
raising them. They are
exactly.
already them themselves, they are shy. So how
They're
will they tell you?
shy. So I asked them, do you know what you can do if anything happens, you are walking on the way and somebody runs to hold you, to touch you, or wants to abuse you, they say, nitapiga nduru.
Guess what? Time is not on our side. As you finalize, please give your parting shot to the viewer. Yeah.
Wow. I want to say, child protection is not necessarily to be done by somebody who is working with children. It is not a one-man show. It is a responsibility that we need our government systems, we need our parents, we need our children to hold hands together so that our children get opportunities for early learning that will make them reach their full potential in life. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the great work that you're doing. Keep it up, because we really, based from this conversation, I have seen that we have a lot to do. Actually, it's like we're really just starting, but we must be concerned because a lot happens from the age of 0 to 5. So it's our responsibility to start protecting our future adults from that age.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, viewer, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you, and bye.